Books are mirrors. You only see in them what you already have inside you. Hey there, welcome to our 5-minute podcast summary with one quote, 3 ideas, and 1 question from an episode. This episode covers the best ideas from the Jordan B.Peterson podcast with John Vervaeke. We explore having love for wisdom, not victory, the 4 kinds of knowing, and the problem with new atheists. The ideas in this episode are from John Vervaeke, who's an award-winning lecturer at the University of Toronto in the departments of psychology, cognitive science, and Buddhist psychology. He released a series of lectures online called Awakening from the Meaning Crisis, and his focus is on integrating science and spirituality to solve the meaning crisis. Now, let's dive into the key ideas. The first idea comes at 9 minutes, where John says, when we're engaging in a dialogue, we want to have the love of wisdom as opposed to the love of victory. When you're in a productive conversation, you're co-creating your understanding of things and going to places that neither of you could have reached without the collaboration of the other. Having the love of wisdom means that you're putting your love of truth first, foregoing any attachment you have to being right, and only focusing on advancing your understanding of reality. While having love for victory means that you're putting your love of winning as the first and foremost priority. The only way to gain truth and move forward is if your love for better understanding trumps your love for being right. The second idea comes around 1 hour and 5 minutes, where John says, we don't know enough about knowing. There are 4 kinds of knowledge. The first kind of knowing is the one everyone usually talks about, which is called propositional knowing, knowing about things. The second kind of knowing is procedural knowing, where we know how to do things, knowing specific actions that get specific results. The third kind of knowing is perspectival knowing, where we know how to perceive the world, understanding the situation we're in and how things relate to each other. And the fourth kind of knowing is participatory knowing, where we know how to relate to the world and those around us. Imagine that someone learns a lot about hammers and becomes skillful at using one, so they have propositional and procedural knowledge. This is useful, but not every problem is a nail. Perspectival knowledge helps us better perceive the world in order to understand what is needed for different situations. And participatory knowledge is where you go from not just seeing, but being in a dynamic relationship with the arena in which we operate in, so that we naturally know how to do what we want to do. The third and final idea comes at 1 hour and 48 minutes, where John says, the problem with new atheists is that they're looking for scientific knowledge in the Bible without thinking about how it cultivates wisdom, without knowing that there's a difference between scientific knowledge and wisdom. We confuse the church and the religions with the dogma or set of principles laid down by the church as incontrovertibly true, without realizing that the fight between theist and atheist is one of whether God shall be called God or should have some other name. A question that we think is worth reflecting on after listening to this episode is, can you think of how you could apply the 4 different kinds of knowing better? So, those were some of the best ideas from the episode. Some of the other topics covered include the nature of insight and the difference between the Cartesian and theological view of knowledge, culture wars, power in society, and the relationship between love and truth, and distinctions between the unknown real and the unconscious. We hope you've learned and been inspired by our podcast episode summary. We've got summaries of other podcasts like The Tim Ferriss Show, Hidden Brain, Making Sense with Sam Harris, and more. Check out the link in the description if you're in Apple Podcasts, or search for podcast summaries on any other podcasting app. We've also got a weekly email digest of the best ideas from written summaries, and the original episode link, both in the description. Thanks for listening. Please subscribe and share if you want future episode summaries.